Scott.
Okay, go sit down.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'd like to open this Tuesday meeting, City Council, March 5th, 2024. If you'll stand with me, the mayor will lead us in the invocation of the pledge.
Please bow with me. Lord, thank you once again for the city that we live in, the people that are here, our citizens. We ask that you watch over them. We have a big event next week. It's an annual event. It's our Sebring Raid, 12 hours of Sebring. You'll have a lot of people in town, and we ask that you watch over everyone that comes and travels a distance to come see our little slice of heaven. We ask that you watch over City Council tonight and make sound and right decisions. We ask that you watch over our staff that keeps the city running like it is. We ask that all we do in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, will you call the roll, please?
Sir. Mayor Shute.
Here.
Bishop.
Here.
Avery.
Here.
Mendel.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here. Okay, I just want to welcome everybody here tonight. If there's anyone in the audience that's not on the agenda, there's some sheets up front here. You can fill them out and give them to Clerk Haley, and she will get them over to us, and we'll call you up at the proper time. Mayor's report.
I mentioned earlier that we've got a little event coming up next week on top of the events that we've had here for the last couple of weeks, but our 12 Hours of Sebring is back in town, and I expect well over 100,000 people to attend, so it's going to get a little busy out there, so I hope you all enjoy that. There are a lot of different races during the week, and then the culmination of the big race on the weekend, which actually starts an hour earlier this year. So,
Really?
yeah. And then Tuesday night, though, is our little celebration that started. This is our 4th annual Transporter Parade, which if you haven't seen it and you think it's kind of weird just to watch semis coming down the street, it's actually pretty exciting. The first one that we had, I thought when we put it together, it's like, who's going to want to see a truck? Well, there's 30 to 40 of these trucks that are just immaculate and just beautiful, painted and that stuff. And it's a good event. The Chamber's putting on a little gala downtown at the Circle Theater. There'll be live music. There'll be drivers coming downtown. They'll have a little Q&A, and it's pretty exciting. So Tuesday night starts at 5:30. I think the parade comes through about 6 and lasts till, I believe, 8. So that's kind of the kickoff to race week. So y'all come on down, and unless you leave town for the week and rent your house out, that's another story. But also tonight, we have a special visitors with us, and I'd like to welcome the Mason G. Smoke Foundation Youth Leadership, the Highlands Ambassadors. We have several seniors. We have 5 seniors from Sebring High School. If you all would stand up. They have a project that is a civic and community engagement program, and these are our future leaders. These kids, they just go above and beyond and excel, and that's what's going to take us into the future. So we welcome you to the City Council meeting. Hope you learn a lot. Don't listen to Leonard. You won't learn much. But no, thank you for coming, and thanks, Dina, for putting together the program and everything that they do. But we're proud of y'all. You guys are great, and you've moving on to the next part of your life in the next year, so congratulations on that, and thank you for coming. We appreciate that. So let's give them all a big round of applause. Now, if you all want to come up and make a speech, we'll let you do that. How does that sound? Okay. Next year we'll prep them for that, Dina. But that's all I have.
Okay. Council is concerned, liaison reports.
Good evening, and we're so glad to have the students with us, our future leaders, and please consider going into government, especially city and county, and consider staying in little old wonderful Sebring, Florida. It's so great. I grew up here, and then I married a gypsy man and moved all over the country, spent my whole life trying to get back here, and God has granted me retirement here, and it's just a lovely, lovely place to stay. So welcome. And I wanted to report that last week or recently, We had a meeting with the Historical Preservation Commission and the people, the production company for the HGTV, discussing how the production company is they're being very, very nice, very cooperative with trying to keep the city folks happy with what they're doing, and I think they've been very successful in doing a good job with their kickoff, and they have certain things they want to do with fixing our town up or making it spiffy or whatever you want to say for this program. But we have a color palette too that's more in keeping with our historical themes in our city area. So I just want to make it clear that the production company is trying to find out what will make our historical folks happy with the changes they're making around town, and all for the best. So just wanted to say it's been a pleasure working with them. So we are keeping in mind the changes that are being made, that they'll all be real historical minded. That's all.
Harrison?
No report.
Don't have a report. I had one thing I wanted to bring up. We all got an email, I think, last week from a gentleman asking us to consider an ordinance about sprinklers going over people's sidewalks. Well, I don't think, I'm not in favor of stopping that because we'll have just dead grass on all the medians everywhere. Does the rest of council have any thoughts one way or the other about limiting hours for that? And I say that because I've experienced that issue too. There, walking with my family on Lakeview or some other side street, and you got to go into the road because some people's sprinklers are covering the whole sidewalk in normal daylight kind of hours. Is there any appetite to make an ordinance change limiting that for certain set hours, maybe like not being policed but just by report or complaint driven?
I did look at that and considered that, and I talked to Scott Natelick, our city administrator, about it, and he said that with the city irrigation, that they take great pains to do it in the overnight hours. And, it just didn't seem practical what that gentleman had suggested. I appreciate him going into all that trouble to figure out an ordinance, but if you try to limit, all of us have a problem with the sidewalks at our homes and all, getting the water on it and turning colors or getting growth on it and things, and we don't like that, but it'd be almost impossible to get water coverage and get all of the grass and the plants and not hit some on the sidewalk.
So I don't mean to limit that. I mean, if it does go over the sidewalk, maybe requiring you can only do it from, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that, so that people in typical traveling hours walking or riding their bike on the sidewalk aren't having to go into the road around it. Now,
You mean like just for everybody in the city? The
Well,
residents?
If your
and all?
coverage goes over a public sidewalk, yeah, that would be the only thing. I don't anticipate it's being where this would be policed by code enforcement frequently, but probably more complaint driven, where if there's a few egregious offenders, and there are, if you drive on Lakeview at 5 p.m. certain days of the week, there's a few houses where it's blasting over the sidewalk, and you're going into the road to get around it, which is the issue that I think we're trying to solve. Does that make sense, what I'm suggesting?
Yeah.
There's people walk all around the lake all hours of the night.
Well, but we
Serious.
can't
Well, I understand that.
fix
I'm
it
just saying.
during all hours, but during
Right.
peak hours,
If it is happening and it is reported, how would the homeowner or business owner be noticed? Would we then send out code enforcement?
I'm assuming it would be a code enforcement letter saying, hey, this is the ordinance, you can only, if it goes over the sidewalk, you can only run it during these hours.
I think you'd have a enforcement issue
Yeah.
on something like that, because there's enough that they've got to handle now and then to monitor the water. And actually, right now, we're under twice-a-week watering, so there's several of them out there that don't even follow that.
Well, that's why my thought would be it would only be complaint driven. I don't want code enforcement.
But somehow,
Going out.
somebody would have to follow up with that complaint then.
Yeah.
How do you do that? So, maybe we need to just to think that through a little bit further.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, plant the seed and let's think about it. It is an issue. It's not huge issue, but I've seen it happen a bunch.
The
where-
mayor's guilty.
And then you had the problem when the power goes out, and your timer is off, and all of a sudden hits the sidewalk and somebody complains about it, so. And it's just the resources to keep up with that. I think there's other issues that they probably should be dealing with, but.
Okay. Well, if
but
there's
I've-
no appetite
I've
to
been
make
hit by
change.
water before, so.
So on the second part of that, though, with the no tree or branches may obstruct the sidewalk, so there is no ordinance about that right now for maintenance on trees? There is.
There
I
is.
kind of assumed there already
That
was
is-
on
There
that.
is.
Okay.
That's probably just another complaint-driven thing,
That was
too.
the, okay.
Did you want to, Chief, you want to say something to us?
Good evening, Chief Carl Hoagland for the record. We do have provisions in ordinance to address watering outside of violation times when water restrictions are put in place outside of hours. And that is a mechanism that code enforcement can address. Typically, it's done through a notice, a warning notice. And if we don't get voluntary compliance, it could end up at code board with fines and liens. To address the second point of the conversation, the trees obstructing the sidewalk, there is a requirement that there's an 8-foot buffer from the ground above. We do notice homeowners for private trees growing from private property over the right-of-way, and if it's a street tree, which is a public tree that's encroaching that limit, we have Public Works communicate with them to try to get that raised to the limit. It's a difficult thing to do, and we don't expect homeowners to cut over the right-of-way for safety issues. We've worked with Public Works in the past to try to get those brought into voluntary compliance or city compliance whenever possible.
And that's just complaint-driven as well,
Yeah.
right?
Well, sometimes it's observation. For instance, leading into the Veterans Day Parade, the route came back up Magnolia. Magnolia has a very tight tree encroachment. Public Works went out advance of the parade and trimmed as much as they could to get that brought into compliance. Key areas, of course, are Lakeview Drive, Kenilworth Drive, or Boulevard, where kids are walking to and from school, or we've got high traffic areas along Kenilworth where we try to keep good visibility and don't have safety issues.
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would there be a way without passing an ordinance that if a complaint came in, like I didn't really think about that with the private people trying to walk on the sidewalk and you got a child, and is there a way to just go and ask the people to maybe do it overnight?
So we have a reporting mechanism on the website, the City of Sebring's website, through, it's called the CRA, it's Citizens Reporting. They can notice us that there's a violation or a problem, let us know what the address is, and we will then assign a code officer to go inspect.
But they can't enforce an ordinance that
Can you
doesn't
just give them a
exist.
friendly warning to
We
please?
typically offer a courtesy notice,
Yeah.
and if we don't get voluntary compliance, it can run the entire code enforcement process.
But at this point, it is not against any ordinance to be having your water sprinkling out on the sidewalk and making people have to.
No, that would typically be a nuisance type consideration. We would ask them to adjust their sprinklers. It's a double-edged sword. We require that they maintain the right-of-way. If the grass is dead, diseased, or dying, they could get noticed. If we water people on the sidewalk, that's a nuisance type complaint that we try to address as well. We really try to balance the nature of the complaint versus the actual violation to see what we're dealing with. As commented, we do have some sprinklers that wash or water the road, the sidewalk, the right-of-way, and the neighbor's yard. In some instances, it's wind blowing sprinklers, and it's really not I would say, an egregious violation.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Yep, I have been spending quite a bit of time with Fred Tucker at the golf course. He's our new golf pro out there, and I think he's really doing a great job. He's making some good changes that, as of right now, aren't costing the city a ton of money. He has a plan to get these greens into shape this summer that I think we'll be able to do a lot of the work ourselves with our maintenance department, and that'll save us a few bucks. It's not free by any means, but he's coming to the table with some pretty good options for us to move forward and get that thing whipped into shape.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Probably just need to address that soon, because April, May comes and that ryegrass is gonna burn off and we're
Right.
gonna go back to this.
It'll be gone in about 3 weeks. Yeah.
So we
I'm
gotta,
talking about the golf course.
Right.
yeah. So we probably gotta bring that back, and what do you say, probably 80 to 100,000 to fix
I think
all
100,
those?
he's planning on a $100,000 ask to get the greens completely redone.
And
Instead
the
of 600
irrigation
to
will take
replace.
care of that now.
Instead of what?
The greens will have to be replanted.
But I mean, the irrigation that we're gonna address, paying for some of this a little bit, that problem has kind of been remedied about.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I know he had called me or sent
The
me.
variable, whatever, the VFD.
VFD.
Yeah,
Right.
came in, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Getting that working.
Yeah.
I had never been out there, and he was kind enough to send an invitation over the government
Mhm.
email. And I think probably y'all might have gotten one. I'm gonna go out a couple of weeks and never been out there to see it. But I've heard he's doing a very good
Yep.
job.
Doing a real good job.
Every time I've gone, every single cart has been on the course.
Really?
Whether or not that is up to the greens being better, or I don't know, or just the great weather.
Well, good thing.
That's it.
Is it? Okay. The only report I have is you young people out there, don't pay attention to him. I graduated Sebring High School and I'm here, and I had to work my way through, so. And I agree with Terry, you need to think about doing stuff like this because we need young people up here, you know. We got Harrison and these two other fellows before that, they were all my age. So we do need young people.
And our age is good.
I didn't
our
say
age
nothing
is
about
good.
our age.
But we need the young people. You know, I never thought about getting into government, and I have really enjoyed it. And you have a real good opportunity to help your town and your county, and just consider it. It's a wonderful area.
Thank you. All righty, consent agenda, accept the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Kathy?
Bishop,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, there is no old business. New business is the public hearing and ordinance 1523. I'm just going to turn this over to Mr. Swain and let him do the introduction.
Sure. Ordinance 1523 is on your agenda for your consideration. It is entitled, "An Applicant-Initiated Amendment to the Official Zoning Map of the City of Sebring, specifically changing the zoning classification for 3 properties totaling approximately 4.12 acres and located at 434 Fernleaf Avenue, 428 Palmetto Avenue, and 503 Rose Avenue, Sebring," bearing, and it lists their parcel ID numbers, from City Multiple Family District R3 and Mixed Use Quality Development District MUQD to public/quasi-public zoning.
Thank you. Okay, the purpose of the public hearing is to receive public input on an ordinance which will change the zoning classification from Sebring parcel numbers S 29, 34, 29, 0400670-0090 and S 29, 34, 29, 070-0710-0010 and S 29, 34, 29, 07067-0110 from City Multiple Family District R3 and Mixed Use Quality Development District MUQD to public, quasi-public. Ms. Torres.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Brenda Torres with the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, and we're here today for a rezoning amendment. Next slide, please. Thanks. The applicant is the Board of County Commissioners of Highlands County, and the location of the subject property is 434 Fernleaf Avenue and 428 Palmetto Avenue and 503 Rose Avenue. We have provided an aerial photo map showing the subject properties outlined in red that make up 0.12 acres, and the request is to change from multiple family district R3 and mixed use quality development district to public zoning district. Next slide. The future land use of those properties is downtown mixed use redevelopment, and the existing zoning is, next slide please, is multiple family district and mixed use quality development district. The proposed zoning would be public. We have done a land use analysis, and the intent is to develop the county businesses and use 503 Rose Avenue, which is vacant. Surrounding property is considered a mix of R3 and R3P, as well as mixed use quality development district and public, as well as single family, multifamily, municipal and county uses, private school, warehouse, and vacant property. Next slide. So I know it's a little hard to see, but we have provided here the area map showing the properties in question, as well as a zoning map of the proposed, with the stars are just there to show that those are the properties also owned by Highlands County. Next slide. Regarding public facilities and service analysis, the city's potable water is in close proximity to the subject area, and the city does have capacity for future connections. Additional analysis and review of the facility improvements will be required at the time of development. Regarding sanitary sewer, city wastewater is in close proximity to the subject area and has capacity to serve future connections. Again, additional analysis will need to be reviewed and completed during the time of development. Regarding solid waste, the subject area will be served by city-approved refuse collector. Additional analysis and review of the solid waste collection will be required at the time of development. Regarding transportation, the developer will be required to review at the time of development application, and there is adequate school capacity as well as adequate recreation and open space. The proposed request is consistent with the future land use and proposed zoning, and on February 13th, the Planning and Zoning Board voted to recommend approval of rezoning for 434 Fernleaf Ave and 428 Palmetto Ave. Those are the two larger sections of what makes up the property. And then they recommend denial of the rezoning of 503 Rose Avenue. That is that smaller piece that is close to single family homes. At this time, I can take any questions or comments.
I got a question.
Yes.
So why did they decide not to change the zoning for the Rose Avenue? Just because of it's in a residential?
Right.
Yeah. So, are they going to revisit that later, or you don't know, or?
So again, it's up to you whether you want to include that as part of the approval, or if you also want to deny and go with planning and zoning. I think planning and zoning just was wondering, if you go to that map, if you see the two stars, I don't know if you guys can see it, but right, thank you. Those two stars right here, that is vacant. That's actually a parking lot. So they were wondering if that's actually going to happen on the one by the one that was denied.
But the county only owns that one parcel on Rose.
No, they also own the one next to it, the one with the star.
Oh, okay.
So the Planning and Zoning Board gives its recommendation to
Right.
City Council. City Council makes a determination of whether
don't-
it should be rezoned as requested.
Because wasn't the desire to have it for parking?
You can have the applicant
is that-
address that if you'd like.
What is your intent for the smaller lot?
Steve Dobbs, New Lines, Steve Dobbs Engineering. So currently, there are no plans for that parcel. So, like I said, if the county decided to come back and do something at a later date, they could come back and request that to be rezoned if necessary.
So it doesn't impact really the project
No,
at
it
this
wasn't
point?
part of
It's
it.
not gonna hurt, it's not gonna hurt your feelings if we don't approve that rezoning.
Not mine.
Okay.
May hurt somebody else's.
Good evening, Brandon Gunn, Highlands County Parks Facilities Director. When this was initially put together, as you can see on the triangular section of where we're going to actually be putting the new cell, there is a parking lot that was put there, I believe, 4 to 5 years ago. When this started, obviously, if we take away that parking lot and where some of the correctional deputies have been parking, we were anticipating needing to provide additional space. We looked into the feasibility of putting some of the cell within the parcels on Rose Avenue. This was, just during kind of a feasibility period, and it wasn't large enough to accommodate that. But the general consensus was if we needed to add additional parking later on, that we could do it there, and that's why this was included with the zoning change.
Okay, so it won't bother you if you guys have to come back later to get.
I have a
the rezoning?
parking spot, me personally. So if we have to come back to be able to, include that with, plans to actually go through and pave it and turn it into a parking lot, we could do that at a later date. Right now, we're just worried about the construction phase of the actual unit due to some time requirements that were tied to the funding source.
Okay. Terry, I was at that planning and zoning meeting, and the reason that they denied it there is they were just worried about, number one, there wasn't anyone from the county there to tell them what they were planning on doing on that lot. And I think they were just worried about it being too close to homes.
To the homes.
Yep, without knowing what it was gonna be.
So there are the 2 lots available for future, if you wanted it. The lot that, the one we're talking about, and then the one next to it for parking later if you needed it.
Yes, ma'am.
You just come back for rezoning.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak on this? Anyone?
Hi, Rachel Moore. I'm currently resident on 522 Rose Avenue, and I just had a question of what was the intent of use for the property if it was rezoned, of which has not been answered. So it's my question is answered because there is no answer. So that's it.
They're talking about possibly a parking lot.
Sure. And my only thing is, if it intends to be a parking lot, is there going to be driveway access to that parking lot on Rose Avenue, or is there a way that we could do some sort of hedge barrier or something at the end of that parking lot that
them from
faces
coming
Rose
on the
Avenue? Yeah. Mhm.
It doesn't sound like they have gotten that far in the
Right,
design process
exactly,
to
so-
answer that, but
But those are just questions that I have as a resident right there on Rose Avenue.
Thanks,
Hey,
Rachel.
Rachel.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Anybody else up here? If not, we'll, I'll have to close this hearing, and now,
I move to approve ordinance 1523 on first reading and schedule second and final reading for March 19th, 2024.
does that include the roads?
Is it not included in the,
No, we would
No.
have to specify not.
with the removal
Roads?
of 503 Rose Avenue?
I'll second
That's
that.
already included in there.
And
No.
We have to specify.
You have to specify, the original ordinance was drafted.
Okay.
at the applicant's request.
Got it.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ben, what did you just say? I thought
I move to approve the ordinance 1523 with the removal of 503 Rose Avenue.
Sorry about that. Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
And I'll second that still.
and we got a second by Mr. Harrison. Harrison? Any other discussions? Kathy?
Bishop,
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Well, there's no business from the audience. Oh,
ma'am, that means they're gonna come back to the city if they want to rezone that Rose Avenue property in the future? For a parking lot or whatever else they may wish to do.
no audience business. City attorney,
Nothing further, sir.
thank you. City administrator,
Yes, sir.
nothing. Well, Kathy, it's up to you.
I'll please approve the paying of the bills, please.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Okey dokey, let's take a poll and see who wants to pay the bills.
Bishop,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Cardall.
Yes. We're done.